Now, for more on Cuba, I spoke to economist Lorenzo Perez. He's a former deputy director for the International Monetary Fund. He's also a member of the Association for the Study of the Cuban Economy. I asked him how Cuba may be viewing President Obama's upcoming trip.
Well, from the Cuban perspective, I believe they are looking for political recognition. So this is a big plus for them. They're also looking, obviously, for foreign direct investment, credits, and they hope that President Obama will continue to push for those measures in favor of Cuba.
And then what about from the U.S. side? What do you think is their take on this?
From the U.S. side, I think President Obama is trying to continue to promote change in Cuba, to bring Cuba into the world order more directly with Western countries. He's also obviously will be promoting business interests of America in Cuba, and also pushing for change in Cuba, human rights recognitions, political change. So right now, at this stage, it's a win-win for both sides so far.
President Obama is obviously bringing his family, so some people are wondering whether the focus will be more on the cultural side, or can we really expect some economic developments on this trip?
Well, no, economic developments are happening very slowly in Cuba. I think that, we just heard this week that, for example, Verizon signed a roaming arrangement with the Cuban government. Marriott hotels are trying to get some deal where they can go ahead and open hotels in Cuba, and that's from both sides, the Cuban government and the U.S. government. Just having the U.S. president in Cuba talking to the Cuban president, that's an important step. They're very different persons. The government represents very different approaches to governance. Also unprecedented is the fact that President Obama will be addressing the Cuban people in TV.
And what do you think that would mean, actually having President Obama addressing the people?
Well, you hear that President Obama is very popular in Cuba. In some polls, he's a lot more popular than the heads of state of Cuba right now. So I think people are expecting from President Obama hope, opportunities. I hope that President Obama also addresses in his speech some of the more difficult issues like lack of political freedom in Cuba, lack of opportunity to the people to express themselves. But I think that, it's really something very dramatic for a country that has been isolated for 55 years.
And speaking of that isolation, obviously it's still early days in the loosening of the U.S. trade embargo with Cuba, but we know President Obama also plans to visit with private Cuban entrepreneurs on his trip. Tell us about what this means for the business landscape there.
These are small entrepreneurs, and they're just looking for, they're looking for credits, they're looking for a way to expand their businesses. And I think Obama will offer some encouragement in that direction.
And in terms of some of the sectors that perhaps could be expanding, which ones do you think might be the standouts?
Well, tourism, certainly. Tourism is booming in Cuba, but they lack a lot of infrastructure. They need more hotels, more roads. So that will be something that the American investors are interested. Telecommunication, I already mentioned the Verizon deal. Agriculture, there's a lot of interest in the agricultural producing states in the United States to sell more to Cuba. So those are the standouts. Now there is a very recent development. A Cuban American and his business partner are going to open, they got permission from the U.S. Treasury to open a tractor building factory in the new free zone of Mariel. So they were going to be producing very simple technology. Tractors are sold for $10,000 or so, but there will be a great demand in Cuba for those tractors. So this is a very interesting development, I think.
And do you think these sorts of partnerships might become more commonplace now then, as these doors are starting to open?
If you are a foreign investor, you have to partner essentially with the state enterprise. And the state enterprise will have 55% of the shares. So that will limit. There's another limitation that you are not able to hire your own workers. The government assigns you workers, and they assign the salaries. So this is very different from the rest of the world. And I believe unless Cuba starts changing these rules, the development might be hindered by these factors.
Now, another thing that may perhaps throw a wrench in the developments between the U.S. and Cuba We don't know who the next U.S. president is going to be yet. What's the feeling on the ground about how that might affect U.S.-Cuba relations?
Well, it could affect seriously depending who is the president. I think that the Democratic candidates will continue President Obama's policies. Some of the the remaining Republican candidates, some of them have said that they want to reverse this. The leading Republican candidate said that he's not necessarily opposed or getting closer to Cuba, but that he would have gotten a better deal. Well, it remains to be seen. But I think this is one of the intentions of President Obama in this trip, to try to move forward this development so there's no going back to the pre-December 2014 speech when they announced that we're going to open the relations.